Good afternoon and welcome. You're listening live to Heart-to-Heart, a program which aims to help you understand and to become your loving self. I'm Dr. Mitra Rashidian. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in full-time private practice and a certified sexologist located in Encino, California. And I'm here with...
And I'm here with you. I'm Dr. Robert Jaffe. I'm also a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm a certified hypnotherapist as well. I'm here with Dr. Rashidian to share with you some of what we've learned over many years of study and practice on how to feel more loving and joyful every day of our lives. We believe that we are born into this world as our loving, authentic, true selves, and we come in open, curious, honest, definitely sexual, and trusting. And we also have the capacity to be calm, emotionally available and connected with others, as well as confident and compassionate.
Well, thank you, Dr. Jaffe, for that wonderful introduction. Our phone number here is live 951-922-3532 at KMET 1490 AM ABC News. We would like to invite you to phone us, ask your questions and comments so that we can provide you with exactly what you need. And also it helps us to grow and provide you with a better program. And we are here every Thursday from 3 to 4 and also every Friday from 9 to 10. And on each program, we are going to be talking about different topics. On Fridays, we are talking about addictions, relationships. And then for Thursdays, we're talking about the no word, the forbidden word of S word, sex and sexuality. Mm-hmm. Yes, because we think everything is important in life, including sexuality, and we definitely need to expand our knowledge and awareness about this aspect of our lives. And today we are focusing actually on a group of people that we think that, well, how are we going to educate them about sex?
Exactly.
Right? And those are our children.
Our children.
And if I want to say that how many times when I talk to parents or they come to me and they say, we want to talk to you about something, but we just don't know how to open it up. It's one of those things that I was always dreadful to talk about it. It's one of those subjects that I'm absolutely, completely want to stay away from it. But then again, it is here and I don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, a client of mine a few days ago when I was talking to her about her kids, and then she started telling me her daughter acts differently, her son acts differently. And I asked them a few questions. I said, well, guess what, ma'am, your kids are growing up. Mm-hmm. So they're no longer 5 and 6, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. And they are getting there. So what do you know how to talk to them? And then she said, I'm out of it. Keep me out of it. That's your department.
Yeah.
And I get lots of that. I get mm-hmm. so many of these sort of reactions, these sort of comments that parents are not really, first of all, not only they're not aware of the importance of their involvement in sexual education when it comes to their children, they themselves are not sexually educated.
Correct.
Right? So it's not about how to have sex, right? And I believe, and I always say that, some people agree, some people disagree. And I say nature automatically takes us to a place of how to have sex, mm-hmm. right? Now, creativity, of course, brings in different flavors to our sexuality, but that's beside the point. Mm-hmm. The first point is, how are we going to be educating ourselves as parents mm-hmm. to talk to our children so that when the time is right for them to, because children come to us, they come to us about their sexuality when they are 3 years old. They come to us when they are 5 years old. They come to us when you're 7 and older, right? So if we don't take our very first steps carefully, accurately, and based on education and awareness, we're going to lose that part of our communication with our children.
Right. And I think most of us didn't get that.
Right.
Most of us did not get our sexual education. And if you are unable to provide your child with sexual education, your child will still learn, and they'll still survive and figure it out. But it's a lot better if they can come to you and share with you some things, so that you can direct them in a way that's healthy, both emotionally and physically for them,
right.
And to be aware of the responsibility and the dangers of being sexual in inappropriate ways.
Exactly. I mean, parents primarily don't do that, or they haven't learned to do that due to their own shame and guilt of looking at their sexuality. Because when we discuss this situation with parents, we see that, like you said, fundamentally, they have grown up forming a perspective that sexuality, even though they do it, right, it's a shameful thing. It's a sinful act.
Unfortunately,
right?
Yes.
Right. I mean, what's interesting is that, when we look at media, commercials, and everything that is sellable. We sell items, we sell food, we sell sunglasses, we sell medication, you name it, right? We use sexuality as a part of that commercial.
Most of the time.
Right.
Yes.
So it is there. We are doing it. We are using it. We are benefiting from it. We use it against each other. So our sexuality, in at least one way, or to say the least, it is part of our everyday life.
It is.
Right.
It is.
With that said, it is important, therefore, for parents to be fully aware or partially aware that where they are with their, concept, with their perceptions and beliefs about sexuality, and realizing that we are living in an era of time. This is not only is the 21st century, and children have access to information whether we want them to have it or not, right? It's also the time that families now are kind of forced to live together 24/7, right? And some parents, they say, oh, I catch my son masturbating, or I'm catching my son or my daughter being on the internet looking at porn, or they are playing with each other in an inappropriate way and all of that. And I'm going crazy. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. Right.
Yeah.
So we see that, it's important for parents to understand and to learn what is the best way to open a conversation about a child's sexuality, age appropriately, of course, and then how to be straightforward with answers or with comments without giving too much information, again, age appropriately.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. And so that's, kind of jumping into what to do and the how to do right now. I think you use the words age appropriate, which I think is the most important thing.
Right.
And actually, we can't start we can't really start too early. Not technically. I mean, my granddaughters are going to be 2 next month, and probably that is too early because they don't really have a comprehension of it. But actually, at age 3, 4, and 5.
Exactly, at age 3. That's it is.
Yeah, yes. Kids can get certain concepts down, and it's not too early for us to open up the topic. And the child is going to take not just what we say, but also how we're saying it.
Our attitude.
Our attitude is going to come across as
our behavioral messages, our tone of voice,
Yeah. Our attitude's going to come across, and that's going to give the child their first message about whether sex is something to be avoided, sex is something to be ashamed of, sex is something that is dirty. And so your manner of how you bring it about, how you talk about it, is going to be felt and taken in by your child. That's going to be the first most powerful message
Right.
that you're giving them, is how comfortable you are with your sexuality.
Right. And then the other important part of this is that whatever message about our children's sexuality we give them, not only they will take it in fully, right? It also determines how during their adulthood they're going to look at themselves, they're going to look at their sexual relationships, and how they're going to build their perceptions around themselves and the society and the whole world, and how the understanding of sexuality and sexual messages reflects on so many other areas of life.
Yes. Yes.
In other words, a negative sexual message during age 3, right, can create a negative message about the whole world for the child.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, we see, so the extent of how we talk to our children is the extent of how they're going to be feeling confident, comfortable about who they are,
Mm-hmm.
or they're going to be in trouble every time they want to have relationship, or they're going to end up having multiple relationship. And so the problems, you know, we're going to get to all of that at a much later time in other programs, because I don't think we can cover it all today.
We can't?
I don't know. I don't think so. However, what we are going to be focusing today is when and how, starting with age 2.5 or 3, to talk to our children about their sexuality, which is, you know, is a very profound subject. It's a heavy subject for parents who are not used to having this type of discussions.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I've been talking to some of the teachers, and they say that when they want to have sex education, basically it's health education. And at the schools, you know, they have a problem with parents because not only they're not signing the consents, and if they are invited to come to the classroom themselves, if the class is joined with their children, they don't show up. But they are happy to show up at the times, you know, when there are no children around.
Mm-hmm.
And then when that happens, you know, the teachers do see that what is the limitation of awareness, education, even sense of curiosity about their own sexuality is there.
Yeah. So I just want to say we're going to have to take a break in a moment, but, you know, we're not here today to talk about your comfort level with sexuality. I am going to recommend a book after we come back on how to deal with your children, but we're going to focus on what are some of the preferred methods of expressing the fact that sex is okay, and being age appropriate as you begin to deal with your kids.
Right. So see you shortly back here, you know, in a few seconds, and in 3 minutes we're going to continue with this amazing discussion. Welcome back from our commercial break. This is Heart-to-Heart program at KMET 1490 ABC News Radio. For those just tuning in, our discussion for this segment is how to discuss sexuality with our children, starting at very young age, such as 2.5 to 3-year-old and up. And we would like to invite you to call us. Phone number is 951-922-3532. You can also visit us at our YouTube at heart-2-heart.online/YouTube. And okay, so over here we're going to continue. So we talked about how to talk about, you know, sexuality with our children, started at a very young age. So many parents, you know, they come in and they say, or they call anyway, they tell us they see, for example, their 3-year-old playing with his penis, right? Or they just look at themselves. They bend over and they look at themselves, right? They see that girls, they're just trying to just find their way around their vagina, right? And what they say is that the first reaction that they have is that, oh my God, don't touch that, don't do that, right?
Oh, you mean
So
the parents' reaction?
Right, reaction.
Yeah.
And then they go in a stage of panic, right? And then they don't know what to do. So that's the first thing and the most essential thing that we cannot do, as a matter of fact.
Okay, so again, your comfort level with this,
right.
and if you're not comfortable with this, you're in good company, because I think the majority of people are not comfortable with talking about their sexuality. But your task is to become as comfortable as you can, because that's going to be a very powerful message that you're going to give to your child in the way that you talk about it, not just in what you say, but also in your manner.
Exactly.
And your tone of voice and your body language. And they're going to pick up on how embarrassed or ashamed you are, which is then they're going to say, oh, this must be a shameful or embarrassing topic, and it's something for me to not feel good about. Exactly. What we want is for our children to feel very, very comfortable within their bodies.
Right.
And that includes their sexuality.
Right.
So what we don't want is to be preachy.
Right.
We don't want to be preachy about it. People used to talk about having the talk. And the talk was, I'm going to sit you down and I'm going to tell you about the facts of life. We used to call it the facts of life and the talk.
The birds and the bees.
The birds and the bees, right. And
well, the birds and the bees are no longer working in 21st century.
Well, basically that is the talk. And I'm just going to share with you when my dad had the talk with me. My dad sat me down when I was about 11, and he started reading to me out of a book, and he started reading about fish.
Really?
Yeah, he started reading about fish, and as he was reading about fish, I was listening, and then I got tired, and my eyes started getting heavy. And guess what? I fell asleep. And then when I woke up...
So your first message was that sex is boring.
Well, I didn't know what he was talking about. He was talking about fish. Anyway, that was the talk. He never sat me down again. So then when I became an adult, I was like 25. I went back to him and I said, Dad, I said, you never had the talk with me. You never told me about sex. And he said, well, I tried. And I said, what did you do? And he said, well, remember when you were about 11 and I sat you down and I started reading? And I said, Dad, that was about fish. And he says, yeah, well, I was working up to it. And I said, well, I didn't want to hear about fish. And you never talked to me about it again. And he said, well, I didn't get the talk and I figured it out.
So there you go.
There you go.
And I never had any formal sexual education. Nobody talked to me about sex, and nobody even talked to me about how my body as a female was going to change, right? So everything was to me a surprise, one after another one.
Yeah.
So going back to children, children, one of the first message that they get about their sexuality, and that's naturally that they get it when they look at their genital, in particular those who have younger siblings. So when the children are born, the newborn, moms changes them and all of that. And if they are the opposite sex, children ask them, oh, how come, for example, he has a different thing down there than mine? Or how come she has a different thing than mine, right? So that's the first step that they're learning about whether they are a male or a female. So that's the very initial stage of learning about their sexuality. So depending on how the mom or the caregiver approaches, children at that stage, and tell them, oh, don't look at this. This is bad to look, or look the other way until I change your sister or I change your brother, right? That's the very first message that we're giving them, that, looking at each other or being a female or being a male, it's a shameful thing or it's a wrong thing. So basically, if the mom or the caregiver at the time, at the moment, invites actually the child and says, well, your sister genital is different than yours because she's a female, and you have a penis and testicles because you're a male. Right. So then the child gets that, but the child, at that age, for them is really, that's only a question and answer, right? For them, that 10 seconds later, he or she can come forward and say, Mom, what is this? Mom, what is that? And they're referring to, for example, a diaper, or they're referring to powder, or referring to something else. So for them, when they ask a question about genitals and they are given a straightforward answer, which is not included with shame and the guilt and the fear and all of that, they just take the answer, okay, and then they go to the next question,
right?
Because they cannot make sense of the the value or the volume of what they're asking, but it is us parents that we are giving the meaning to their questions. Like, we are the one who are giving them a shameful meaning, or a fearful meaning, or a sinfulness, or a negative attitude towards their question.
Correct.
And then they take that attitude in.
Correct.
And they learn that when it comes to genital, that's how they need to feel. But if you just give them the answer, oh, that's your sister's vagina, and you have a penis, they say, oh, okay, and they will go away.
Yeah.
With a solid answer, without feeling bad about it.
Right. And that's an excellent thing you're bringing up, because then that might lead to another question. Well, why do I have a penis, and why does she have a vagina, and what does that mean? And then what you're saying is, based on their age, and they're not going to be asking that probably, after 7 or 8, they're going to understand more. But based on the younger ages, 3, 4, 5, 6, then they're asking for that question to be answered, and you don't have to give more information.
Right. I mean, and then the next set of questions from children comes when they are like 4 and 5, actually, which now they are paying more attention to their body, right? And boys usually have a habit of just, playing around with their penis and with their testicles, right? And then girls, by that time, if they learn that they're doing a shameful thing, so they won't do that. But if they feel like they are confident about their body, they may just approach, their genital in some other way, right? But then again, that's when we need to teach our children what exactly the meaning of privacy is, right?
Right.
So this is age appropriate. So first they're learning about their genital area. Now they're learning about how to keep certain actions private.
Correct.
Right. So how do we show that to them? Is, it starts again with us parents, right? So when we go to the bathroom, we need to close the door and tell them, okay, you're going to have to wait outside for us, for me, until I come outside. So when the child goes to the bathroom, we close the door for them and tell them, when you're ready to come out, then that's when you open the door, right? So for example, so these are 2 ways that, we not only we demonstrate what exactly privacy is in that sense, we put it into practice for our children to do it themselves. Right. And then, for example, when a male child plays with his, penis, and he does it in front of everybody, because they don't know exactly.
It feels good.
It feels good, right? And then they don't know what they're doing actually with it. It feels good, so they do it.
Exactly.
Right? So then again, it's up to us to tell them that, well, if they want to do that, go to the room, close the door, and do it in private. This is not something that you do in public.
Correct.
Right.
And certainly they will have that idea from having the experience of going to the bathroom in private. Right. So that's and that's great.
Right. These are some examples of how we can do that, and tell our children that how to understand their genital, and how to respond to it, and how to take care of it, and how to share that part of themselves in public. Right. So it is the more we are open and the more we are concrete, and the more we are gentle, and the more we have, positive attitude towards how we introduce these aspects of life to our children,
Mm-hmm.
the more solid, the more confident, the more aware our children are going to move forward.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Right. And then, because here's the danger, let's say that a child doesn't receive this kind of information or education or attitude when first they start paying attention to their genital, part of their body. Well, guess what? Sense of curiosity is among all the human beings, right? We all have that.
Mm-hmm.
So if I don't get that from my mother, guess what? I'm going to go to my what I call my best friend, who doesn't know more than I do,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then my friend tells me some other stuff, and then when that process begins, we learn that as children, that our genital is a forbidden place. It's a place that we cannot share it. It's a place where we cannot talk about it, right? And then what we don't learn is that if somebody inappropriately approaches us, right, we don't know how to say no,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we are, as parents, if we don't talk to our children about sexuality, we are setting the stage for future sexual abuse.
Well,
Right.
I don't know that we're setting the stage.
Well,
but
when children don't know how to understand it, they wouldn't be able to push somebody away. They wouldn't be able to stop somebody from approaching them.
Yeah, but I don't think we're setting the stage. I think what we're doing is not giving them tools that would be be beneficial.
Yeah, I take that. We're not giving them the tools. Okay,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Okay, I agree with that. Yes.
Yeah. The other thing is that our own view of sexuality needs to be examined for myths that we're carrying about our sexuality.
Right.
And so those myths we have to be aware of so that we don't pass them down to our children.
Right.
So myths are also stereotypes. And people often believe that the stereotype is real for their particular child. Now, stereotypes are aspects of ourselves that have maybe a piece of truth to it, but certainly aren't true for everyone. And the danger of a stereotype is that we think of it as the norm, and we think of it as true for everyone, and therefore if you don't fit within that norm, then there's something wrong with you. So I'm going to give you a few from the book that I brought out, and I want to recommend this book to everybody. It's called Your Child's Emotional Health, and it's by the Philadelphia Child Guidance Center. It's an excellent book about child development and how to find out how to approach your child's development in all areas. Today we're focused on sexual development. But here are some of the stereotypes that people are still carrying, and that we have to be aware of, that we don't pass them down to our children. One is girls are naturally disposed to behave well, and they obey rules, and boys don't. Boys like sports, and girls don't. Girls enjoy dressing and grooming themselves, and boys don't. Boys like doing chores outside, and girls like it inside. Girls are inclined to be afraid and to cry, and boys don't, or boys are not. Boys derive satisfaction from working with their hands, and girls don't. Girls need to express and receive a lot of affection, and boys don't. Boys are emotionally tough, and girls aren't.
Well, those are definitely myths in the society even today. and we're looking at the anthropology of how girls and boys are separated from, each other in terms of their gender from early on, as soon as they are born, actually, and how the message that we give them kind of changes their attitude about not only their gender, but about their sexuality. So we're going to continue more about this after our commercial break, and see you then.
See you then.
Break. This is Heart-to-Heart program at KMET 1490 AM ABC News Radio. And we are talking about children and their sexuality. Please call us at 951-922-3532. That's 951-922-3532. Or visit us at our YouTube at heart-2-heart.online/YouTube. And let's continue with this beautiful conversation. We were talking with Dr. Robert here about, some of the challenges that parents and children go through together because of how to introduce sexuality to our youngster. And then what we were talking about is, for example, when now that they're home, I hear the messages that, parents are kind of struggling with when their children are asking about, Mommy, what is that? Mommy, what is that? And so they're referring to their genital, and then they don't know the name of, they don't have a name to refer to it. And then what we usually hear is that parents, especially moms, they give, a kind of funny name to the child's, genital, right?
Right.
So they usually use the name of a bird, or they use just a funny name that, it just sounds funny, but then again, it's really meaningless, right? And then also when they see that the child is playing with his or her genital, they just tell them, oh, stop it and don't do that. That's not a good thing to do. So the child learns that he or she shouldn't do that. But then again, if you just ask the question of what makes you touch your genital, maybe we find out about other things, right? What if the child is feeling some level of discomfort in their genital? What if they want to go to the bathroom and they have a habit of holding themselves, and not going to the bathroom, right? Maybe there is some level of, itching is going on, and the child is trying to take care of that.
Right.
So we can't just assume negative about why a child is touching their genital.
And what about the biggest reason of all?
The biggest reason of all is that, the child feels good.
It feels good.
It feels good.
It feels good.
Right. But then again, we need to clarify before we assume.
Right, exactly,
right?
Exactly. So basically, if it feels good to touch your genital and you're bad for touching your genital, then what is the message we're giving? That is that you're bad for wanting to feel good.
Right.
And unfortunately, that's a message that a lot of us received growing up. To me, the most important message you can give your child in all development is that I have faith in you and I trust you, and I trust that you're going to make good decisions, and I'm going to help you get the information that you need so that you can make good decisions for yourself.
Right.
And I think that is the opposite of fear messages. When we talk about that you have to be careful and you have to watch out for and you have to be afraid, rather than giving them positive messages such as, these are your genitals, and you don't want anyone to touch them that you don't give permission to. And if you feel uncomfortable, if someone wants to, then you say, I don't feel comfortable with this, and then you say, stop.
Right, exactly. And then once the child learns what is appropriate and what is not appropriate when it comes to touching their genital, they're going to be learning that if somebody actually wants to touch them, that they can recognize that and they can stop it.
Correct.
Right. So that these are some of the very good examples that we need to remember. And also when they grow up, learning about, and internalizing what is appropriate and inappropriate, it can actually save them from contracting different forms of sexual transmitted infection or sexual transmitted diseases.
Correct.
The other part is that we see how the childhood misleading about sexuality can show itself in adulthood. For example, there is a condition called vaginismus in women, right? So when we investigate about how a woman who biologically doesn't have any issue in her genital, but psychologically is unable to participate in the act of sex, is because, early on she has received variety of messages at different stages of life that, touching her vagina is inappropriate, it's sinful, it's shameful, so the person feels guilty. And then many of these women or those who have lack of desire or lack of orgasm, actually, they have a negative perspective about their genital. And then what happens is that, many of them also at the same time, they have never seen their genital, right? They have never given themselves permission to grab a small mirror and take a look at their genital and being able to identify different, anatomical part of it. So they are totally unfamiliar with their genital area. Even some women report to me that when they shower, they never touch their genital. Right? So imagine that a woman who is thinking that way and believing that way, so the first time that they are going to be aware of their genital and their anatomy of it and the sensation of sexuality, which part of it gives them the sexual sensation, is when actually the first time they start to have sex, and then when they give birth to a child. So
they what?
They give birth to a child.
Yes.
Right. So prior to these two experiences, right, they don't have any awareness about their sensitive area in their genitals, sexual sensitive. They don't have an awareness about how that anatomy works, unless they just get some information in health classes, which is really minor and which is really minimal. But other than that, they're not motivated to go and to learn about themselves.
Correct.
So vaginismus, which is a sexual pain disorder and is mostly psychologically related, is one of the prime consequences of not giving proper sexual education during childhood, and just giving negative messages that a female is not supposed to touch herself or to feel anything. Then they refer to a down there as though it is something that, you can look at it. Right.
Now, going back to children, children at young ages often engage in sex play with other children. And
playing doctor.
Yes. Playing doctor or whatever they're doing, because they're curious and because touching the genitals feels good. So it seems very, to me, it seems kind of illogical to assume that they wouldn't be engaging in sex play when they're very young. And depending upon the age of the sex play, it may be that that a girl is engaging it with other girls, or that boys are doing it with other boys, or that boys and girls do it together, depending upon the age and developmental, where they are developmentally. And so then oftentimes parents who see them doing that or hear about it because another parent has told them that they've been doing that, the parent doesn't know how to handle that, and oftentimes the parent overreacts and talks about how bad it is. And so what I want to say about that, and I want to get your view on it as well, is that rather than tell the child that they're bad, you can always talk about the behavior as being appropriate or inappropriate and give the reason why, so that you're focused on the behavior but not the child. because you don't want to shame the child as though the child is bad. If you believe that the behavior is inappropriate, then you talk about that particular piece of behavior as not appropriate for the circumstance, and then you give them a rational reason why it isn't.
Well, you're absolutely right, because when we shame the child, we're actually shaming, their sexual self.
Mm-hmm.
We're shaming their authentic true self.
Mm-hmm.
However, when we are referring to a behavior and children, know that they do that, like any other behavior, they take a new approach once we teach them what to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
In one of the areas, that parents kind of become frightened is when they realize that their, children are masturbating at a very young age, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have seen 5-year-old, we have seen 6-year-old, we have seen 4-year-old, doing masturbation. But the reality is the child doesn't know what masturbation is. Like you said, the child knows that it feels good.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
So instead of freaking out and instead of panicking and instead of, making a big deal out of it, it's best to remind the child that behavior, it needs to stop. And it needs to be done.
It needs to stop publicly.
Publicly, it needs to be done privately. Right. And not to just, punish them in variety of ways that parents usually punish the child when they see something like that. The child cannot recognize they are doing something sexually.
Well, they don't know that they're doing anything sexually, and they don't know that there's anything inappropriate about it.
Exactly.
Until we tell them.
Right.
So I wanted to share, when I was around 11 and 12 and I was masturbating, we had a doctor living next door, and my mother saw that I was masturbating and got very concerned because she didn't know, and she went and talked to the doctor. And he told her, well, it's normal and it's natural, and he's masturbating. And then she said to him, when will he stop? And the doctor looked at her and he said, no, and the doctor looked at her and he said, when he dies. And the doctor was right. So yeah. And again, this is not to talk about, anybody who has a religious objection to it as making you wrong. It's just the awareness that what we're bringing you here is what we now know to be scientifically and from a humanistic point of view, the way human beings are and the way we develop.
Exactly. It's healthy. However, everything is based on moderation. So if a child gets engaged in masturbation frequently to the point that, he or she cannot pay attention to any other thing, then that is not normal.
That's not normal.
Right.
And that usually means that there's some psychological reason that the child is doing that.
Right.
Because then it becomes more in the obsessive, compulsive, addictive thing where the child is perhaps using that in a way to avoid other feelings that the child may not want to experience.
Right. So if we remind our child about the behavior that needs to be mindful about and how to take care of that behavior, after a few times it will go away, or it may not go away, but it's not going to be an interruption in the life. However, we want to again be mindful of the frequency and the nature of how it's been done. The point is that the more we are open to answer our children's questions,
right,
without age appropriately, again, right, we don't want to give too much information because child is not able to handle that.
Right.
It's not going to be able to comprehend it, too much information. We just need to respond to the specific question of the child.
Correct.
And then stay with that, and then just answer and walk away, or answer and do something else. And then
or answer and then ask the child, do you feel satisfied with that answer?
With an answer?
Or do you have another question? So that you make yourself available as a resource. Right.
Because otherwise the children will go to the resources that we don't want them to go to.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So and this is a very sensitive time. We know that, the children are home and they ask questions, and then parents relied on the school counselors, parents relied on teachers, and on everybody else but themselves.
Yes.
But now they are facing the reality that they need to be that teacher, they need to be that counselor, as well as they need to be that loving parents who provides nothing but support and love to their children.
Yes.
So we want to be sure that we know how to be responsive to our children's questions. There are innocent questions, they're just facts of life, and we need to be aware of it and how to respond to that.
Yes. So I want to say to our listeners now, we're having these two shows. We're having the one on Thursday from 3 to 4. We're almost done. We have another one tomorrow. And any questions that you have about human development, about sexuality, about relationships, about addictions, please let us know. Please, because we want to answer those questions. We want to make this show for you.
Exactly. Our phone number is 951-922-3532. Also, our private informations are available on the KMET website. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow at 9 o'clock. And don't forget, all you need is love.
All you need is love.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
This is 1490 AM KMET, Banning, Beaumont, Redlands, and Palm Springs. News, talk, sports.
From ABC News, I'm Daria Albinger. Health experts are warning a second wave of COVID-19 cases is a distinct possibility. President Trump says the U.S. response will be different if that happens.
We're not going to close the country. We're going to put out the fires. There could be, whether it's an ember or a flame, we're going to put it out. But we're not closing our country.
And the president's comments while touring a Ford Motor Company plant that now makes ventilators. Mr. Trump opting once again not to wear a mask despite it being a state and company policy.
The president held a black mask in his hand and said he wore it earlier on the tour.
Honestly, I think I look better in the mask. I really did. I look better in the mask, but I'm making a speech, so I won't have it now. But I did have it on right here, and I think some of you might have gotten a shot.
He said he put it on in a back area where Ford preferred he wear it.
But I didn't want to give the press the pleasure of seeing it.
All of the Ford employees were wearing masks. Ryan Burrow, ABC News.
States are continuing to take steps to reopen. Georgia's one of the first states to lift restrictions, and it says it's seeing a steady decline in COVID-19 cases.
We reached another milestone this week. As of today, we have less than 1,000 COVID-19 patients hospitalized in our state.
That's Governor Brian Kemp. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer signing an executive order that would allow non-essential medical procedures to resume and dentists and veterinarians' offices to reopen.
We believe that this is a safe step to take and a necessary step because we don't want people putting off some of these more routine in a regular atmosphere events that need to be seen.
And starting on June 1st, weddings in Ohio can have up to 300 people. The Labor Department says almost 2.5 million Americans filed for unemployment benefits last week, bringing the total since the pandemic began to about 39 million. William Roddy Bryan, the Georgia man who filmed cell phone video of Ahmaud Arbery's fatal shooting, is now charged with murder. You're listening to ABC News.
You check things all the time, like your email every 10 seconds. Or your ex's Instagram? But what about checking something as important as your credit? Well, Discover makes it quick, easy, and best of all, free. Discover is now offering FICO credit scores, the score used by 90% of top lenders, for free, even if you're not a customer. Checking your score won't hurt your credit, and you can